Well, joining me now is the Israeli ambassador to Turkey, Eitan Na'eh. Sir, it's a pleasure having you on set on the Newsmakers. Thanks for coming to Istanbul.
Thank you, my pleasure.
You must have a tough job, and I'll tell you why. We have Turkish President Erdogan saying your Prime Minister Netanyahu is a, quote, terrorist. You're still allies on paper, still a relationship between the two nations. We have Prime Minister Netanyahu biting back on Twitter, talking about Syria and the like, and talking about killing civilians, and that Turkey should not be lecturing Israel on morality and values. How hard or how much harder does that make your job being Israel's man in Ankara?
First of all, I was very glad to be chosen and honored to be Israel's ambassador to Ankara. Turkey-Israel relations are my passion. It's my second tour in Turkey. I was here during the 90s. Different times, different type of relationships. I was a second secretary, a spokesman of the embassy. The role of every diplomat is to look for what brings us together, not what separates us. And my job here is exactly that. I'm coming here to this interview from meetings, a series of meetings in the morning, through the morning and lunch with top businessmen in this country, and all telling me we want to do business with Israel. We want to come to Israel. We were in Israel. We visited Israel. We wanted to take our families to Israel. We want to do business with you. We understand your language. You understand our language. We think the same. And I think as a diplomat, my first and foremost mission is to bring our countries together, to build trust. Difficult, not easy, but possible. I've seen it happen before.
But when one's saying terrorist and the other one's saying butcher, how do you bring the two together at all?
You know, there are two peoples here. There are the Turkish people and the Israeli people. Turkey is still the top destination for Israelis. Passover, past. And Turks like Israel, those who come to Israel for the first time. Yesterday I met in the embassy a Turkish researcher who went to Israel for the first time. These are the things, these are the ingredients that make me hopeful, no matter what is the current weather, that for the long run, or even for the medium to long term, relations will pick up, trust will be rebuilt. We have a lot in common, a lot of things that we see eye to eye, or should see eye to eye, a lot of common threats. We eventually want the same thing. How together is a different question.
I think that's affecting the weather, and the thing that President Erdogan was directly referring to when he mentioned that was the situation on the Gaza border. So more than 40 Palestinians killed, more than 1,000 wounded. Was it justified?
Depends how you term the word justified. Every death, every injury, every tear that is shed is regretful. We don't want our sons to kill, and we don't want to get killed. We have interests to protect, we have a security, our borders. And here in Turkey, you asked me before about the difficulty of my job. I feel that here in Turkey sometimes the job is easier when I remember that Turks, like Israelis, honor the borders, the security of the borders, their own security. They know how to fight threats against their own security. They know how to repel terrorists and terrorism. Turkey, like Israel, fought terrorism for many years. And this is what we feel that we are doing. Gaza is controlled by Hamas. Hamas is a terrorist organization. Hamas wants to destroy Israel. Today in Israel, we mark the Holocaust Day, a remembrance day for 6 million Jews who perished in the Holocaust. It started with words, with let's destroy, let's kill, let's annihilate the Jewish people. And 1/3 of my people were annihilated. My generation grew up on the notion of never again. We will never let anybody annihilate us, destroy us. We will protect our borders, protect us, our sovereignty, protect our independence. And I feel that when I talk to Turks, they actually understand what I'm talking about. They understand what is fighting against terrorism. You fought terrorists. At times we help you fight terrorism. And we are fighting terrorism.
When we talk about Holocaust Remembrance Day, one of the most egregious acts in history, the Holocaust, one of the things that comes to mind is to say, well, if there are among the Palestinians people who say terrible anti-Semitic things, does it justify military occupation, besieging Gaza, air blockades, land blockades, sea blockades, snipers killing innocent civilians? Does it justify killing Palestinian civilians because among Palestinians there are some who are laced with anti-Semitism?
I don't think the question here is laced with anti-Semitism or whatever they say. It's not what they say, it's what they do. It is what they say when they come and say, our mission is to destroy Israel, is to come instead of Israel. My country is the only country, it's not just the Palestinian Hamas who said that, it's not just Hamas, it's also Iran. We want to destroy Israel. Nobody can stay calm.
We're not talking about the Iranians.
Nobody can stay indifferent to such threats. Now, is it just mere words? No. More than 1,000 civilians, Israeli civilians, were murdered in the streets of Israel, in restaurants and buses. So these are not just mere words. This is not anti-Semitism.
And these are condemnable actions, right?
And this is terrorism.
So this is killing. But my question to you is, out of the 30,000 or so people who were protesting or more, are you absolutely convinced that these were anti-Semitic Palestinians hell-bent on destroying Israel?
It's not the question. And the question is if they want to protest peacefully, and whatever the protest is, and whatever the issue is, they can protest peacefully. They can stand away from the border. They can gather together. They can chant. They can sing songs. They can have their weddings, or whatever they need to do. When you run amok to the border, when you sabotage the fence, when you throw firebombs, when you lay IDEs or mines or fire at soldiers, you will be responded. Israel said time and again, we will protect our sovereignty, we will protect our border. So when you want to have peaceful demonstrations, and we know what peaceful demonstrations are and how they look like, this was not those who ran to the border, those who ran to the fence.
Can you account for all of them? All those people who were killed and all those people who were injured were throwing bombs at your soldiers?
Look, the Israeli army is one of the most moral armies. Nobody shoots at will, at his own will.
Are you sure about that?
Yes, there are procedures in place.
You're saying this at the same time a video's just come out showing snipers killing an unarmed Palestinian or shooting an unarmed Palestinian. And I apologize. He wasn't killed. I'm not sure if he was killed.
No, he was wounded.
22nd of December, right? Snipers shooting an unarmed Palestinian. Wow, what a video. That son of a whore. Wow, they hit someone in the head. That's one of the soldiers. Unarmed. Your defense minister saying the sniper deserves a commendation, the photographer a court-martial. You're not only representing your prime minister, you're representing your defense minister. We're watching this video of Israeli snipers taking pot shots at Palestinian unarmed civilians, and you're telling me one of the most moral armies in the world. How does that square?
Because, as we said before, we reached an agreement, a ceasefire agreement. We set a perimeter, and we said all those who cross the perimeter, who run towards the border, who put the border fence, the border security, our security. We have tens of thousands of Israelis living in communities along the border.
Even if you're unarmed?
Tens of meters from the border. When you run to the border, when you threaten the security,
you will expect to be shot.
Warned, there are procedures in place, warned, and if you don't stop, you will be shot. Israel said it time and again, warned that it will do that, and warned those people.
Even if
they're not just being shot, they're not being...
Not seen as a threat.
It is a threat. It is
unarmed.
a threat. A threat. People run amok to the border, people throwing Molotov cocktails, People carrying weapons.
Without a Molotov cocktail,
Those-
without a weapon, just walking towards the border, you'll be shot.
And why to walk across towards the border?
Well, I don't know.
It's
I
a-
can't
it's a
get into their
military-
psychology. I'm not a Palestinian living in Gaza caged inside
The question
Gaza.
is this: do you want to live with peace with Israel, or do you not? If you want to live in peace with Israel, stop telling, stop chanting, stop educating your people, stop inciting your
But
people
again,
to
I mean,
hate
this is the
and
thing.
destroy.
These are peaceful protests. If people are just
Is it
walking
peaceful?
towards the border,
Who said it was peaceful? Why peaceful?
do you have evidence that these people
Yes,
were armed?
of course.
All of them.
Of course.
All of them deserve to be shot and killed and injured.
The majority of those shot were either active members of the military wing of Hamas. And you have to understand again, Hamas is being treated by Israel the same way as any other terror organization is treated, whether it's PKK or Hezbollah or Daesh.
Okay.
This is a terror organization.
And that's understood. That's the Israeli viewpoint of Hamas. Let me ask you about Yasser Murtaja, the journalist. So here's a man. He's wearing press. He's wearing the flak jacket. He's got a camera, clearly unarmed, shot dead during the demonstrations. Was his killing regrettable?
Every killing is regrettable because
Okay.
the cause of death,
I didn't ask you if every killing was regrettable. Was his killing justified?
under investigation,
It's not under investigation, actually.
it is under investigation.
under investigation.
The Israeli, obviously. The Israeli army investigates. High-level officer, a brigadier general, was appointed to investigate all cases whenever somebody is being hit.
This is news to me because, as far as I understood, it
So
was
let
not
me-
being investigated
No,
because
no.
Avigdor Lieberman said the man was a Hamas operative. Your defense minister again.
He said that. He mentioned his rank. He mentioned what he did. But nonetheless,
Do you believe your defense
in the
minister?
Israeli, yes, of course. The Israeli army has procedures in place. Every time a person is being hit, injured or died, an investigation is opened. Soldiers are questioned. This is, as I said, a moral army. We don't shoot in order to
So
kill
there
for
will be
fun.
an investigation.
Of course. And we also said, and Israel said, that the soldiers' reaction was below what is required, what is expected from soldiers in the Israel Defense
So
Forces.
it was regrettable.
He died. Every
but,
death.
But
every
you agree
death.
with the defense minister that he was a Hamas operative?
I wasn't there. I don't know him personally. So I believe my defense minister. Let's
Right.
wait for the investigation to be carried out.
I wanna
and
ask
let's
you
wait for the
because-
results. I can
Okay.
promise you one thing.
Okay.
I can promise you one thing. Since we hold these investigations are carried out with the judicial oversight. They are under judicial review
Understood.
in Israel.
And that's
I
good.
think that's
Checks
what
and
you can
balances in
expect.
society. That's great.
Absolutely. It's not what society is being judged by its morals, by its values, and the way it keeps its moral and values. And I think that this is what we do.
Okay, so Murtaja was vetted by the US State Department. Did you know that?
Yes.
He got a grant of $11,700 from USAID, the US State Department. Do you trust the vetting process of the US State Department?
I trust one thing. We will hold investigations. We will come to a conclusion.
Do you
and
trust
we
the
will
Americans
publicize.
to vet a Palestinian in
I'm
Gaza?
not an American spokesperson. I don't know what they do in order to vet. That's not my job to set. I'm saying one thing. As an ambassador, as an Israeli, I trust my government.
Certainly.
I trust our judicial process, our due process. I trust our military, which I trust procedures in place. I trust our rules of engagement, that every case will be investigated, conclusions will be made, are made, and we'll continue to defend our borders, defend our sovereignty, and fight terrorism. The Gazan people have a choice.
Can I ask you, before we go to what you feel the Gazan people should choose, what is more likely, that this guy was Hamas and that the State Department gave a grant of almost $12,000 to a Hamas operative, a senior Hamas operative, whose rank your defense minister knows, or that he's a journalist and your defense minister's lying?
What do you think my answer will be?
I don't know, tell me.
I am waiting for the result of the investigation.
Is it likely that the US State Department
I am
would
not-
give a $12,000 grant to a Hamas operative?
I don't know what the answer to such a question is. I'm not speaking for the Americans and their vetting procedures. I'm saying one thing.
All the evidence seems to suggest he was a journalist. The Norwegian Refugee Council hired him. Do you think they hire Hamas?
I am waiting for the result of the
If
investigation.
the result shows he was a journalist, what would your answer be?
I think that if the result shows, it's a hypothetical question. I'm waiting for the end of the investigation
Would you
to be able
apologize?
to say, I think that we apologized in the past and mistakes can happen. The question is not whether mistakes cannot happen. Nobody said everybody is perfect. The question is how you react. And I said time and again, the question is much bigger than that. We are facing a threat to our border security. No country, including this country,
Certainly, but I
will
mean, again,
stay
and you give the
indifferent
analogy,
to such
Turkey does
threats.
not control the airspace or sea space or blockade any of its neighbors, so the context is different, right? You'd agree that the context of Gaza is different to Syria and elsewhere.
If you
you
have
accept?
time and to go over the issue of Gaza and why Gaza is in its situation, let me tell you one thing that I learned when I was a very young diplomat. Whenever you point a finger at somebody, 3 fingers are pointing back at
Certainly.
you. And the question is, with your
Is
with your
Gaza the
permission,
same as anything that Turkey is
with
facing?
your permission, let me just
Yes.
finish. With your permission, the question is, what is the Gazans' contribution to this situation? When Hamas took over Gaza and overthrew the legitimate governance of Gaza at the time, which was the Palestinian Authority, abolished the passages, the border passage agreement with Israel, when Gaza continued to be controlled by a terror organization. Hamas is a terror organization.
And we've had them in this seat. I've been to Gaza to talk to them. So, from my
And-
perspective, I hold them to account when I talk to them, and I'm holding you to account when I talk to you. Is that fair?
It's fair to hold an account when we know the whole story,
Okay.
when we know the whole picture, when we have all the details. I'm not going to comment on what the media says, what the Norwegian official says, and with all due respect to our American friends, what they did or didn't do. I trust my country, I trust our authorities, I trust our due process, that the investigation will be carried out, and we'll see the results.
Okay. Let's look ahead a little bit, just before we end, because we're almost out of time. Mid-May, for you, independence. For Palestinians, Nakba, catastrophe. Competing narratives, competing history. There's a commemoration, there's an anniversary. Things have been heating up right now. Clearly, they're going to heat up then because Donald Trump decides he wants to move the embassy to Jerusalem against the wishes of much of the world. You would accept that as a diplomat. That's fact. Isn't it in Israel's interest to stop killing protesters in the build-up to what can be spectacular violence almost in May?
I don't think it's a right question. I don't think it's a fair question. I'll tell you
How
why.
should I have asked that question?
I don't know. I'm not the interviewer here. But I'm saying this. Israel was established in 1948. It was established in war, very much like Turkey. Your war of independence, our war of independence. I'm not comparing situations. I'm saying that Israel was born. Israel is a fact. Israel exists. Its right to exist is unquestionable. It's a natural right. Accepting it or not accepting it, Israel has a right to exist. Israel exists. Simple. Israel celebrates its 70th anniversary very soon.
Should Palestine exist?
We recognized the Palestinian right for self-determination. We are still waiting for the Palestinians to accept the Jews' right for
Do you
self-determination.
accept the commemoration and the pain of those who were evicted from their homes? And whether it's going to be a political reality or not, don't quite feel like celebrating Israel's independence because they have the title deeds to homes that other people have right now. And they live in places like Gaza or occupied in the West Bank. In principle, do you accept that?
You know, the question is this. We have history. We have the past. I cannot change the past. None of us can change the past. The only thing I can change, we can change, we and the Palestinians together, is our future. So we can sit down and dwell about the past, each with their narrative, arguing until we turn blue about the past, or look together the future, argue about the future, how to make our future better, how to make the future of our children and our grandchildren better.
But isn't there a power dynamic
question.
here, a power imbalance here? Because only one side is militarily occupying the other. How about the occupation ends, and then you can talk as equals?
One answer. Let's sit down and talk. Israel withdrew from Gaza. Israel withdrew from Sinai. Every time we withdrew from a place, it became a launching ground for missiles that were lobbed at Israel. You want to make peace with Israel? Sit down and make peace with Israel. You will find the Israelis thrilled with the thought of peace with our neighbors. What we will not and will never compromise is our security, our existence, and our sovereignty. This is something which, again, being here in Turkey,
right,
I think that every Turk identifies with these three things. You are a proud nation, you keep your border secure, you fight terrorism, and we are no different than you.
So why is it so difficult to convince President Erdogan that these are similarities?
One thing will persuade everybody, and this is reality. And the reality is that we should sit together. We have done so in the past. I was here during the 90s, during the Camp David, the Oslo process, the Camp David talks. We spoke peace. We tried to build a future. If we sit down again, without preconditions, to talk about our future, not about the past. We can argue about the past once, maybe in the future, when everything is settled. Let's build a future together. And in that, everybody should join. To that wish, everybody should join. Because I'm sure that everybody here in Turkey, in the US, in Europe, everywhere, whoever watches us now, joins me with this wish. If you want to make peace, sit down and make peace with your enemy, as long as you accept that your enemy, that your opponent, the person, the nation on the other side, has the same rights as you. We accepted the Palestinians' right for self-determination. We are waiting for the Palestinians still to accept the Jews' right for self-determination. You cannot demand your rights by avoiding, by preventing somebody else's rights. That's a simple truth. From there, we can move forward, we can move to the future to build a better future.
Ambassador Eitan Na'eh, I thank you very much for joining us here on the Newsmakers.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed that.
Yes.